Welcome to Running for Real, a global community with a shared love and curiosity for running. Together we reconnect with the reasons why we love to run and discover ways it helps us become better people. Whether it's the quiet moments of a morning run while the rest of the world still sleeps, or befriending the strangers next to you at the start line of a race, we are here to connect with others who see running as the common thread that weaves our lives together. Come join me, Tina Muir, as I talk with people from all walks of life, united by a love of running. Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 425 of the Running for Real podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I'm excited that you are here. And those of you who sent me a message after last week's impromptu mini episode, I'm just so grateful for you. It didn't feel right releasing this episode while my guest today is very inspiring to me. And in many ways, it's an important message that could have gone out last Friday because of the topic and the content. It just didn't feel right to me to kind of go ahead as usual. And so I'm excited today. We are back on track and with the ideal person for that as we figure out what this next step looks like. Today, I am excited to welcome Mike Africa Jr. to the podcast. He's the author of On a Move. He is the Move Legacy Director, and you're going to hear what Move is if you don't already know. And yes, he is a runner. So we're going to hear about the way he ties these three parts of his life together, about how running, what running means to him, and also the background of his family that has led him to do what he's doing today. Without any further ado, let's go meet Mike. Thank you to Runna for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. You have heard me talking about Runna. It's the #1 rated running coaching app in the world. They are on a mission to make running as easy, effective, and enjoyable as possible. You heard Rob talking about this, how Runna was his companion. It helped him to get ready for Berlin, how he ended up running a PR after many years of not running marathons. Runna is really going to take you to where you want to go. Yes, I am still returning from my injury, from my surgery, which means I am not ready yet to jump on a runner plan, but I am excited to do that. They create personalized plans for all abilities, ranging from those of us who are starting our running journeys from scratch, as I will be soon, or if you are even from the very beginning of your journey as a couch to 5K runner. They go all the way up to elite marathoners, and the plans are built by Olympic athletes, expert coaches, and they are not only going to have your runs on there, but your strength and conditioning plans. It's going to have integrated mobility and Pilates plans. It syncs with your calendar. And best of all, you can connect with other like-minded runners in the community section. So you have heard myself talking about Runna. You've probably heard other people talking about Runna. It is fantastic to have these personalized running plans just for you. They use AI to tell you what it suggests that you should be doing next. You can also reject or accept those suggestions as it goes through the training plan. It's going to sync with your devices, give you all kinds of support. And you, as a friend of mine, can get yourself 2 weeks for free by using code Running for Real. That's running, FORREAL, Running for Real. And that's going to get you 2 weeks off a plan with Runna. Go check it out. Rob loves it. I love it. I can't wait to use it. And it is well worth a look. Look up the Runna app, RUNNA. That's RUNNA. Go check it out and use code Running for Real. Mike, welcome to the Running for Real podcast. I am excited to have you here. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Have you done a running podcast yet?
No, this is my first one.
How does it feel to be on a running podcast?
It feels long overdue.
Okay, well, I want to get into that first, but it's interesting. Like quite often, I usually am the person that has someone on their first running podcast, and it's usually some person who's like, if you'd have told me 10 years ago that I'd be on a running podcast, I would have laughed in your face. So I like your answer more of long overdue. Why do you say it like that?
I've been running for a long time. I mean, I grew up in a community in Philadelphia that is a runner community. I guess, the battles for justice in my life and in my childhood and all of that has always taken center stage. So talking about running or enjoying it has always been like something we didn't really think about. I thought about running as an activity to strengthen your body, to make you stronger, faster, whatever. But I never thought about it in a way of enjoying. So, to talk about it now, it's different.
That is very interesting to hear you say that, because I kind of come at it, and we will get into this from the other end, in that I used to be an elite/professional athlete. And now I would say, so I was always known as a runner. That was the thing. But now I'd say my climate activism is actually starting to tip the balance the other way.
Mm-hmm.
And I quite like that a lot of the things I'm starting to do aren't about running anymore. They're about like something bigger than that. So we're kind of coming at this from two different angles, obviously very similar. And reading through, learning about you, there's so much of about Move, about your great uncle, that really resonates with me as someone who, does see herself as an environmentalist. Feels like I spend my life banging my head against a wall trying to say to people, like, we're not superior to all living beings. We are all living beings. We are all connected to one another.
Yes.
And
yes.
I feel sometimes like it's so hard for me to get that message across. So reading that's, been a critical piece of your everything that you are, and everything that your parents and great uncle felt was important was very, very refreshing to me, of like the whole we are all connected element of things. So for someone who is listening to this, and I'll be honest, like before I came across you, I didn't know anything about Move. I am British, and our history, our schooling is obviously very different, but I will be honest, like until you connected with my team, I didn't know anything.
What?
So as I'm sure you're going to say, that's not a regular thing that someone doesn't know. So tell us what are we talking about here when we say Move?
So let me back up a little bit. You're British, but are you in the States or are you in England?
I'm in the States. Yep.
In the States. Okay. No, it's actually pretty common that people have never heard of Move. There's a lot of people in Philadelphia where the most common incidents happened. A lot of people in Philly don't know, and that's because there's a very concerted effort to keep people in the dark about what happened. They don't want it taught in schools. They don't want it taught to children. They want to keep teaching the lies about Christopher Columbus and whoever else. The history of the Move organization goes back to about 1970, 72-ish. It was started by my great uncle, John Africa. He had a simple mission: protect life, people, animals, and the environment. And, he encouraged other people to protect life too. And having that belief, that mission, it can be very dangerous when you're talking about, protesting against the Philadelphia Zoo or the Bronx Zoo or the Barnum and Bailey Ringling Brothers Circus. These institutions are making money off of enslaving animals. They're making money off of training animals for the purpose of jumping through rings of fire and balancing on balls for the amusement of people. And John Africa would say that, in order for them to be trained to do those things, they're beaten, they're starved, they're abused, they're stuck with electrical rods and stuck with steel spikes. And, there's so much pain that they go through to be trained to jump through rings of fire. He would say if the zookeeper or the circus owner think it's okay for a baby tiger to be taken from its mother and jump through a ring of fire, how would he feel if somebody took his baby from its mother and made him jump through rings of fire? The same sun that shine on our heads shine on the tiger's heads. And, it's just because the tiger doesn't have a voice to voice their pain, to talk about what injustices are happening to them, doesn't mean that they don't feel what's happening to them. Why do you suppose they scratch at you if you come too close to them? Why do you suppose they run if they feel threatened? Why do you suppose they growl or hiss or attack? And so, and the same is true for the environment. It's all connected, as we talked about earlier.
I really resonated with that your great uncle, he called Mother Earth Mama,
right?
Which is something I just have always done. And my daughter, actually, we now, she's seen me do it so much that she does it. Anytime we see like a tree, like that's big enough to get her attention, I always say, "Hi, Mama." And like, I put my hand on the tree every time. People probably see me do this thousands of times, but now she does it too. And like calling Mother Earth Mama just feel, so I in that in itself, I was like, wow, that's what I say. And then I'm reading this book right now called An Immense World.
Mm-hmm.
And it is talking about, how all these different living organisms have their own superpowers in terms of their senses. And the chapter I'm on right now is about smell.
Mm-hmm.
And it was talking about kind of along the lines of what you're saying with the zoo, which has always given me a kind of uncomfortable feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It was saying about how with dogs, their noses is everything. That's their superpower.
Mm-hmm.
But we as humans have trained these dogs to kind of like, when you take a dog for a walk, I don't have a dog, but when people take a dog for a walk, it's like, come on. Like anytime they stop to sniff and do something which is their way of making sense of the world, they're like, come on, keep going. And these dogs lose their ability to use their superpower, because they're being like put into the bracket of this is how humans see the world. And so, stop sniffing things.
Right.
And there's so many examples of that. And I am hyper aware of that at the moment. So I appreciate you bringing that up, because I think that is something we all need to be thinking a bit more about in terms of a lot of what you're saying there, especially with what's going on environmentally right now. It's not just affecting one area, like all of us. If it's all connected,
mm-hmm.
all living beings, but also just the climate disasters that are happening are Mother Earth is angry.
Right.
She is mad. And of course she is. So yeah, sorry, that's just a few side shoots that came to mind when you were talking.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you're not angry at the state of the world, you're either blind or insensitive. The air don't have any breaks in it. The air that we breathe over here, all of the air is connected. So if there's pollution in the air in Philadelphia, if people in New Jersey expect not to be polluted, then there's something wrong with that.
Sure.
And it might not show up. There was a nuclear power plant disaster in Philadelphia in the early 80s. It's called 3 Mile Island. And the nuclear power plant had some kind of explosion, and nuclear waste was just spewing out of this nuclear cooling tower. And Jimmy Carter came to Philadelphia. When he was president, he assured the people that everything was going to be okay and all of these things. And decades later, people turn up with cancer. People were sick. People have all kind of issues, and it's all tied to that area. And people that 100 miles away from that area also complained about those same issues.
Yeah.
So. What if, and then what happened? Okay. And that's just one aspect of things, but like that, what about the river that collects the chemical that is traveled downstream, and the fish that someone may, lure out of there and eat it? What happens to the sediment of it that sits and maybe it's dormant for a while because it's not moving, but some boat comes and scoops it up, and now it's active, and the kids that are playing in the water 100 miles away are sick, and they don't even know why. It's just. And then here's the absolute incredibly insane part about it to me. You don't have to use nuclear power to get electricity. There are safer, cleaner ways to get electricity than nuclear power. And so it's just, but money, what they say, follow the money. And these people that create these things, they don't care about the environment. They don't care about what it's going to do to people 10, 20, 30, or 100 years from now. All they care about is money.
Well, and we got to see that visibly for when New York turned orange last year. And that was such a good example of, it wasn't a fire in New York. It traveled, that same air traveled along and that was visible enough to where it made people be like, oh, this is not okay for me to breathe. But even that, like, it wasn't enough to change things. Okay, so I want to go further into, so related to Move, your parents, were very much in line with your great uncle and, tried to help people see the way that he saw the world. But, that ruffled too many feathers, shall we say? And so what happened next?
Well, a lot of people might have agreed with John Africa, might have agreed with Move, but, sometimes when you have a conviction about certain things, you might rub people the wrong way if it's too strong for them. If all your, it could be something good, but if you're obsessed with it and it's the only thing you want to talk about, eventually it becomes stale and unpleasant. And John Africa was so, his conviction and what he believed was so strong that he just constantly tried to make people see it. And then Move members, they were the same way, and they were irrational at times about how they wanted people to see it, because they would, I guess I'm trying to think of an example. They would say the clothing industry, the industry that make these clothes, these combs, everything is polluting the air. So they told their children not to wear clothes. And so we didn't wear clothes as a child. We didn't wear clothes unless we were going somewhere, we didn't wear clothes. And so having the conviction is one thing, having the belief is one thing, but how do you convey that to people who don't see things the way you see things? They don't live the way you live, and they don't want to. So that created like kind of a rift for a lot of people, even though what, Move is saying is right about the environment, about the animals. They were kind of heavy-handed with how they delivered it. And the people that they were the most heavy-handed with was the police, politicians, people that they felt protected these institutions, protected these corporations. And they were very vocal, very loud. They would, I mean, if there was a meeting about the educational system, Move would go to the school board of Philadelphia and say, we want to have a meeting. We want to talk about what y'all teaching, because true education is about the environment. True education is about these animals that are in these cages that need to be free. There was a situation on the Mike Douglas show in Philadelphia where Mike Douglas was showing, they had the guest for the day was a monkey. And they had this monkey in a chair. They were trying to get him to do things or whatever. And he was alarmed by the lights. He was uncomfortable with things. So he started like kind of running around the room and knocking over things off the desks. And he was so they brought him back to the chair in front of the guest, and they handcuffed him to the chair so that he couldn't get free. And he was going wild, going off. Move members saw that on television and was very struck by it. So the next day, the next taping of the show, Move members went to the show and they handcuffed the host to the chair. And they said, now you know how the monkey feels. And then they put out information about how wrong it was for them to do that to this animal whose natural environment is not a studio with microphones and lights all over the place. So a lot of people didn't really understand that. And some people did, but a lot of people did not. And PETA didn't exist back then. A lot of these animal rights organizations didn't exist. So it was kind of new information for people. That led to like police getting involved. You know, if you're going to go in and invade a radio station, a studio that's prominent in the city of Philadelphia, the police are called and they came.
And so for your parents, they ended up being put in prison 30 to 100 years. Is that correct? There was the sentence they were giving.
The police came. You know, there were different skirmishes, different zoo protests that the police came, locked people up for misdemeanors and whatnot. And eventually it got to the point where MOVE members said, we're not taking this anymore. We're tired of being arrested for speaking our piece. We're tired. We have the right to freedom of speech. And if we're going to be arrested, you're going to break the law, and we're going to defend ourselves against you if you come at us. August 8th, 1978, the police sent for a few hundred cops to MOVE's house to evict them from the house and said they were going to take them and basically by any means necessary.
You've heard me talking about Tracksmith for years, 5 years to be exact, because those same items that I was given 5 years ago are still lasting the same, even though they've done hundreds of runs, thousands of miles. And recently they've been handling sweaty bike workouts, especially when I'm on the stationary trainer, as well as even swims. I've done a few swims in my items. The quality, the durability is lasting beautifully. And that is because Tracksmith takes so much pride in what they make. As I've mentioned before, the number one thing you can do environmentally when it comes to your running clothes is to buy high quality items that last. I am a big fan of many of the items that are bestsellers, including the Session Speed shorts. Those are my favorite shorts of all time. I love all the tanks. I really just love every one of them. I wear them almost every day. I'm wearing one of those tanks, as well as the Session short tights. You can go check those out. And I encourage you to use code TINANEW for $15 off your order of $75 or more. That's use code TINANEW, TINANEW at tracksmith.com to get yourself that special offer. Get yourself some quality items, make them last. You will be amazed with the quality, the durability, and they're going to look good too. Go check it out at tracksmith.com. And so for you, I want to continue with the way things developed for a little while, but then I do want to refer it back to kind of the way things are now. Mm-hmm. You were then born in a cell,
right?
And so then raised by a family in Philadelphia. So that wasn't the end of it there, in that your parents were there, and then kind of, other people, including yourself, just kind of lived life with your family, with your parents in prison and the other MOVE members in prison. What happened next?
With my parents being in prison and sentenced to 100 years. So what happened was when the police came to our house, there was a shooting and a lot of shots were fired. And during the shooting, a police officer was shot and killed. Many people said it was friendly fire. Witnesses, including other police officers and journalists who were on the scene, said that they saw it was friendly fire, but they were killed. The police officer died. He was shot with one bullet. And of course, the police didn't blame the police. They blamed MOVE. So MOVE members were sentenced, including my parents, up to 100 years each. The other members that were still on the street, they were protesting for the freedom of my parents and the other members. Mm-hmm. And the city was, alerted that MOVE was serious and that they wanted their political prisoners freed. But the city refused, even though the mayor at the time, Wilson Good, admitted that he believed that the officer was shot by friendly fire as well. Mm-hmm. But that didn't stop them from coming at MOVE harder the next time. This time it was May 13th, 1985, the city of Philadelphia response to MOVE protesting to free the other members was to fly a helicopter over our house and drop a bomb on it.
That said, that isn't something, as I said, I didn't know at the beginning. A lot of people may also have not heard. That's not something that you tend to hear about having happened in Philadelphia. And particularly it was It was during a year that the Philadelphia was the location for Live Aid. So tell us about how that, is that correct?
That is correct. Philadelphia was chosen to be the city for Live Aid because of the bomb. The mayor, Wilson Good, told the producers of Live Aid that so the producers of Live Aid were trying to figure out whether they wanted to do it in Los Angeles or New York. And Wilson Good heard about it, and he told them that if you guys do it here in Philadelphia, we will give you all of the venues and all of the security, everything you need, we'll give it to you for free. So you won't have to pay for New York fees and you won't have to pay for Los Angeles fees because you can do it for free. Because they was trying to cover up what happened May 13th, and they were trying to boost the morale of the people in the city of Philadelphia. And might I add, Live Aid was supposed to be a benefit concert to raise awareness around the famine in Africa. When my grandmother heard about Live Aid, I asked her, when I heard about it, I heard that there were different performers there that were going to be there. It was a free concert. Run DMC was going to be there, and all of these amazing performers. And I asked my grandmother if I could go to the Live Aid concert, and she said no. And I asked her why. She said, because they're coming. She said, these people are coming to Philadelphia to do a concert talking about they're trying to support Africa, but they don't care at all about the bomb that was dropped on the Africas.
Yeah. And so how, with you being in the Move family, with that being something that, happened when you were 6, is that correct?
I was 6.
How did your worldview get shaped when you were coming in with, you were being raised by the Move family, being raised by people close to you, but also kind of grappling with what the rest of the world was still kind of channeling, forging ahead with this different mindset, including, yes, something like a Live Aid, go help overseas when there's so much, still going on over here that needs to be worked through, and treat people treated better. So yeah, talk to us about that, about growing up in that environment.
Well, I'll tell you what, the thing that stood out to me the most, that made me, the thing that I took away the most of it, was that I couldn't trust police. Police were supposed to be the people that serve and protect the people. What any movies that we watched about the police, they were always the good guys. And might find one or two movies where they're the bad guys or there's a bad guy within them sometimes. But the movies that we were watching, at the time, Beverly Hills Cop, there were the Clint Eastwood movies, even the Superman movies. Superman was working with the police. It was always like the police's job was to get rid of the evil villains. But in my world, the police were the people that were the villains. They were the people that were dropping bombs. They were the people that were shooting kids as they were trying to escape burning buildings. So it shaped my understanding about the police, and it made me kind of like afraid to believe that they were good ones. When people say there's a few bad apples when they're talking about the police department. But the way I was seeing it, there were 500 cops at our house, and which one of the good ones were involved in saving people? So it felt like it was the other way around. Like there's a few good ones, but the rest of them are bad. Like one of the officers, his name was James Berghire. He was the only cop that actually tried to save some of the kids. And he ran and grabbed Birdie, the little 13-year-old that survived the fire, and he grabbed him and he picked him up and he brought him, out of harm's way, and he saved his life. And for doing that, the other police officers back at the station wrote "nigger lover" on his locker, and they put M80 firecrackers in his desk drawer and exploded them, and now he can't hear out of one of his ears. and they ran him off the force. So where are all these good guys, right? So that's what I like really took away from it. Like you really just can't trust the police, and the lies that they're spinning lies about the police department. I mean, maybe the police are good is true for some people, but in my experience at that point, I didn't believe that at all.
And how did you reconcile with that? With, like you said, this was very much in your experience was very much in contrast to what you were seeing in the rest of media and the way things were portrayed, the way other people saw things. How did you process through that?
It felt like there were two worlds. One was the world that the television shows, Black people, the Cosby Show, people doing good, Dr. King marching down the street. I mean, it was 1985. Dr. King was fresh on people's minds even then, in a suit, churchgoers. I mean, back then, every Sunday people went to church, and so you see this one side, this well-to-do, this upper middle class Black life on television and around the neighborhood. But in reality, that's not how it felt.
Yeah.
It felt like the world was against me. It felt like, just because I had different type of hair than other people had, that I was an enemy to people. I had a lot of friends growing up eventually, but none of them, everybody had at least one of their parents in their life. Everybody that I knew. Mm-hmm. And both of my parents were in prison. And usually the person that had the people that had their parents in their life usually had their mother. And a father might have been in prison or been away somewhere. But usually they had their mother. And I didn't have either. So, it made me feel like when people would say it's going to be all right, they were lying.
What did that period of time, where you were trying to grow up, trying to figure out who you were in a world where you were seeing so much injustice, you were seeing so much pain, and what did that teach you about yourself, about, trusting yourself, knowing yourself, who you wanted to be? What did you learn during that period?
I learned that you have to do for self. I said that's one of my favorite lines that I say about things about life. You have to do for self. Another one is happiness is a choice. People can do things to make you smile. They can say things to make you feel good, but that's like candy. It tastes good at first, but it wears off, and it's not sustainable. And then another one that I developed, is do for self. Happiness is a choice. And then the other one is hurt people, heal people. All the time you hear people say hurt people, hurt people. Like it's a given. Like if you've been hurt, you're going to hurt somebody. That really boggles my mind. It's like, if you know what it feels like to be hurt, why would you want to do that to somebody else? So instead of hurting someone because you've been hurt, why don't you use the hurt that you didn't enjoy, that was traumatizing, that was painful? Why don't you use that as an example to heal other people? Yeah. And so,
how did you get to the place to where you could do that? Because that's a difficult thing to do when that's, when you were, if you were treated badly, that's kind of what you learn of how people treat other people. So how did you learn to move away from that? Or was it just the move insight that kind of guided you through that?
I don't know. It was always kind of innate. Like you just know, like you just, when I remember when I was a child and my grandmother would beat me for something, whatever it was, even if it seemed like it was justified, even if everybody that was there told her she should do it. I just remember I remember thinking, when I have kids, I'm never going to beat them. So I didn't, and whenever, when I would say, when I have relatives that would say things like, I'm never having kids. They would, while we're doing whatever we're doing, acting up, whatever, just being kids, just, maybe we're being a little difficult this day. And then one of them would say something like, I'm never having kids. Why would you say something like that? Like, are you that insensitive that you don't realize what that could do to a kid, especially one who doesn't have his parents? So I just remember feeling like I want to help kids. So when I became a teenager and I had this little rap group, and I got other kids to be in the rap group with me. And we did this rap. And when I got older, to the point where I had my own kids and their cousins and their friends, I would always take care of them and bring them around and, do things that they like to do. And my house was the party house. We have the trampoline in the backyard. We have the pool in the backyard. Whenever the kids want to do something, I don't care what's going on. If they want to do it, let's make it happen. They want to go hiking. They want to go camping. They want to, they wanted to go to some place. And their parents were like, well, that's a little bit too expensive. And Uncle Mike, yeah, I got you. We're going to figure out how to make that happen. I would go get signatures and collect donations from people. And we find a way to get the money so that we could take these 30 kids on this trip that they want to go on out in nature and whatever. So that's just always what I did. I just believe that hurt people know what it feels like to be hurt. And instead of using it as an excuse to hurt other people, we should use it to heal people. My dad wasn't there, not because he didn't want to be, but for whatever reason, he wasn't there. So for me, I'm always there with my kids. It's my job to pick up my kids from school, right? As my wife, Robin, she said, I can do it. No. I'll do it. My dad wasn't there, so I don't want to not be there for my kids. So that's hurt people, heal people.
It is already that time of year. Holiday season is upon us, and it is easy this time of year to fall off your routine. I know I do. And that's why I rely on drinking AG1 as my one constant that I keep in place no matter what. And I've been using this for 5 years now. And right now, AG1 is running a special Black Friday offer for all of November. AG1 is a daily health drink packed with nutrients to help alleviate bloating, support sustained energy, and whole body health. It's important to take care of our gut because our gut is the part of us that we're only just beginning to understand, but it really is an indicator of how we are doing as a whole. It's something that I prioritize and think about a lot, even though I'm just starting to learn more about it. And AG1 has these lovely travel packs, which are ideal for this time of year when you may be going to visit family, traveling around the holidays. So this holiday season, try AG1 for yourself or even gift it to someone special. I've definitely done that to many of my family and friends. It's the perfect time to focus on supporting your body with an easy and surprisingly delicious daily health drink. And that's why I've been partnering with AG1 for 5 years now. Every week of November, AG1 will be running a special Black Friday offer for a free gift with your first subscription. In addition to the welcome kit with vitamin D3 and K2, you will get that. So make sure to check out drinkag1.com/Tina to see what gift you can get this week. That's drinkag1.com/Tina to start your holiday season off on a healthier note while supplies last. Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. And thank you for giving, another way to look at that. Because it is true. Like it doesn't feel good to, when you can put yourself in, when you know what a pain feels like, you don't want other people to feel that way. And I like that you've been so conscious with that of finding ways to channel that into a positive direction rather than continuing that cycle. Let's talk about movement. That was also an important part of your upbringing, your life, that becoming physically fit was something that you prioritized. Why was that, and what did that look like for you?
One of the reasons why we exercise and move, we move members were always in skirmishes. They were always in fights with somebody, neighbors, police officers, or each other sometimes. So, they would always exercise to be strong. In revolution, you have to be strong, right? So that was always just part of our life. Growing up, you do push-ups, you exercise, you eat healthy. And then one day I learned that I do my best thinking running. And I feel
Was
better.
that just an accident? Like you just were out for a run?
Yeah, like one day I was out for a run. I was out running one day and it just hit me. Damn, that's a good idea. Whatever it was, whatever the idea was, it could have been writing a song. And I would have to stop running so that I could quickly write it down.
Yeah.
And I did my best thinking while I was running. So then it became a thing where, what else can I use this running for? What other thoughts do I need to consider that I can use? And it always made me feel good afterwards. I'm like, wow, it just, no matter what problem I'm trying to work out, a good run usually helps me figure it out. If I'm feeling bad, a good run usually helps me feel better when I'm done. So, when I guess I might have been around 20 something years old. And, from then on, I just run a lot, exercising those problems up in my head, or, in addition to the be healthy, mantra. So that's what it was. That's why I do it.
So then, related to that, let's talk about the 13 Run Challenge. What is it, and why decide to use running as a means to honor the 13 people who were bombed? So,
when we were children, you know how it is when you're a child. You with your friends, you run.
Yeah,
that's the first fun activity you do in life. You run. You're hide and seek. Your freeze tag, your whatever. When we was kids growing up, that's what we did all the time. Running from each other, hiding from each other, chasing each other, tackling, and the children that were in the house May 13th, I think about them all the time. And I just felt like I wanted to honor them in a way that, lends some understanding to the type of things that we did together. And running that was it. Also, they died in a horrible death while the adults were trying to use their protest to free my parents and the other MOVE members. And I did my best thinking to free my parents on a run. One day, the elder MOVE members usually handled the MOVE 9's case. But at a certain point, Ramona Africa, the lone adult survivor of the bombing, she had a conversation with me and she told me that I needed to take the lead on it. And I accepted that, that I would. And I was trying to figure out certain things to do to get the people free. And I said, I know I do my best thinking on a run, so I'm not going to stop running until I come up with the answer. In this one period, over the course of a couple of days, I ran 54 miles. I ran like Forrest Gump. I would run, and I got to the point where I changed my shoes a couple of times. I went to the bathroom a few times, but over the course of a couple of days, I ran 54 miles. And that just it just made me feel better. Oh, and then by the way, at the end of the run, I had the answer. And so running has just been a really powerful force for me. and connecting it to the children. You know, the 13 run challenge, the last one that I'm doing is in May of 2025. I'm going to run to the cemetery where the one child is buried, to the cemetery where the other children are buried.
And that is going to be May 2025.
Yes.
For the listeners. Why May 2025?
Because it's the 40-year anniversary of the bombing, the day they were killed.
And how far of a run is that?
It's about 14.9 miles.
Okay.
And it's hilly. It's not just 14. This is not a flat plain. It's hilly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's in Philadelphia.
It's in Philadelphia, and it runs through one small town called. It runs through actually a few towns. One is, I think, maybe Alden, maybe Clifton Heights, and maybe Collingdale. Once you leave Philly, it's a few towns. They go quick.
Okay. How can people support you with the 13 Run Challenge and with this, if they're listening to this and you know, want to support you?
Oh, well, you know what? People can send me running gear. I run out of shoes. You know, I put a lot of miles on these feet, on these shoes.
Yeah.
You know, if people, some people, they want to sponsor me. They send me shoes. I have a couple of runner jackets that people sent me. That runner jackets are nice. And if people want to support with the campaign itself, because the running campaign is one thing, but it leads to a celebration. Because there's this thing called the Reclaim Osage. Yep. On May 13th, after they dropped the bomb on our house, we owned that house. My aunt owned it, and they took it from her through eminent domain. And so she tried to get it back, but the police turned it into a police substation, and they wouldn't give it back to her. It remained a police substation for 35 years. So I've been trying to get it back. While she was on her deathbed, she said that's all she wanted was her house back. So January 10th, 2023, I was able to secure it. So we have it back, but they didn't give it back to us. We have a $400,000 mortgage on it. So the 13 Run Challenge is a fundraiser too. So it supports the Reclaim the Osage to get our house back. Follow me on Instagram at Mike Africa Jr. on all social platforms at Mike Africa Jr. And if, they want to send donations or send, some shoes or whatever, I wear these shoes. Well, maybe I shouldn't say the name of them.
Yeah, you can just say that they're probably shoes, one of the running brands.
Yeah, running shoes size 11 and a half.
Okay. So then related to that, the final thing I want to ask is, how do you reconcile with the ideals and the meaning behind Move and living in this world in 2024 when we have gone even further away from what your parents and what John Africa was kind of fighting for, believing in? How do you reconcile with that there in your own life?
You can do you can only do what you can do. You know what I mean? Like, we want freedom, but some people are locked up. We want peace, but we're at war. We want love, but sometimes the people don't give us that. You can only do what you can do and keep moving as you can. I worry about it less and less. It used to be like a burden that somebody strapped on my back.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Just like it's a weight that I have to carry all the time. But as I get older and more mature, I realize that you really can only do what you can do. And the best thing that I feel like I can do is leave a mark, leave that idea that, people should keep striving, try to leave it better than we found it. I think leaving it without a trace, I don't know if that works. but leaving it better than we found it, setting the example that freedom is possible, acknowledging our past wrongs and mistakes. Some things that Move did wasn't practical. Some things that Move did was very, very revolutionary and important. And you take the good and you discard the bad.
So then, related to that, one thing that just was kind of in my mind while we've been talking, but also just in anticipation of talking to you, a lot of the things that Move members were doing are kind of along the same lines of what we're seeing today, particularly with environmentalists, making choices that are trying to get the message out, get the word out. The activists that are getting put into prison, into jail, but they are trying to show people, exactly this messaging of the harm living in this world where we, only value human beings and often don't value human beings, or definitely one life is worth more than another life. Do you often think about that piece of it, of the way that it's kind of mirroring what they were doing in many ways, and it's still in some ways ending with a similar response of, even at this point with all the climate disasters that we're seeing, it's still ending in these people ending up, censored and put in prison for it?
I mean, yeah, it's a system, right? And the system don't care who you are when you talk about these issues. President of the United States, if the president of the United States start talking about issues that the system don't want talked about, she could be eliminated. It's a system, and it's like an assembly line. Pieces go together in a certain order, and if someone comes to disrupt that order, whoever is controlling that assembly line will come out of their office or send someone to check those people. And I think it's the funniest thing when America says that this is the home of the free, yet this country imprisons more people than any other country, including the entire continent of Europe.
Yeah.
Right. So, I don't know what it will take to make people wake up and see. I don't know. But I do believe that the downfall of the system itself will show people the errors in our ways. We are so far.
Do you see that coming in terms of communities starting to recognize, the power of doing things in a small group locally rather than everything being global?
Yeah, I do. I feel like, people think revolution is fire, fighting and killing and shooting and violence. I don't. I think of revolution as me having a garden. Anything that they say do, you do the opposite. We should grow our own food and share with each other.
Yes.
If you share, you know what? Move was some of the most environmentalists that I've ever met. If you grow a garden and you share with your neighbor, and they grow tomatoes and you grow kale, and this person grows peppers and another person grows corn, you know how much industry you're getting rid of.
Oh, yeah.
The trucking industry that is responsible for 12% of the pollution on our planet. If you're eating locally because you're growing within your community, your foot distance, your bike distance, you are cutting down dramatically on the shipping industry, which is the most pollutant industry in our planet, right? So I do see that as something that people are becoming more aware of. And I think that, when people are more involved in health and fitness, even if it's just for money, if you want to be a health and fitness influencer on Instagram, you can't eat McDonald's and have the body you're trying to achieve, right? So people are trying to find ways to be more fit and find those foods that have that higher protein naturally content, right? So I see it, and I also feel like the system will, the same way they did marijuana, once they find out that it's something that could be beneficial but cut into their profit, they will try to find a way to control it and redirect people away from community and into something else. So we must be conscious of that. But I can tell you that I share with my neighbor. My neighbor shares with me.
Yeah, we do the same, and it feels good.
Amazing. And our tomatoes taste way better than any supermarket on the planet.
Yes, 100%. No, I am very, so we grow food as well. And I'm very conscious every time I bring a huge bowl of tomatoes inside. I'm like, this is like $8 worth of food plus like the amount of days it had been in the store that it had traveled to get to my store, whereas I took 20 steps.
Right.
And yeah, the sharing with the neighbors is just such a beautiful thing of like cucumbers were a big thing for me. We grew a lot this summer, and knowing that I could hand a cucumber off to my neighbor and they could pickle with it, or they could make a salad with it. Right. And rather than going and get like a plastic wrap one in the store that had traveled and been there for 2 weeks. And
you've never, and like I said earlier, and if you haven't had a fresh tomato off a tomato vine, you haven't had a tomato.
Mm-hmm. No.
So that's it.
I've always been a tomato lover, and especially fresh. Yes. Mike, is there anything you want to wrap up with, reminding people, or just a message you want to leave people with?
Do your push-ups, do your sit-ups, do your squats, get your exercise in, because that exercise will connect you to life. It connects you to life. And if you do that, you will feel that connection.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for sharing your journey, your family's journey with us. And I will put lots of links in the show notes for people to go find out more about the 13 Run Challenge, your website, social media, all of those things. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. I look forward to doing this again.
Before we go any further, I just want to give a quick shout out to the Running for Real team. Without them, I would not be able to do barely anything compared to what I'm able to do today. They are behind the scenes. They are there for me. I am just so appreciative of them. To Jeremy Nessel, our podcast editor, audio consultant, and someone who's been with me since the start. To Sally Pontarelli, our content and operations manager, who is there day to day doing all the things to help me be successful. To Kelsey Wang, our head of design, and Louise Murphy, our associate designer. And finally, to Sandy Gutierrez, our photographer and content strategist. I am appreciative of all of you and wouldn't be able to do what I do without you. Thank you so much for listening to that episode today, a really important one. And I learned a lot. I know I am from the UK, but I definitely didn't know most of that. So I'm grateful to Mike for sharing and also being an inspiration in a time we need that light. So he is being a beacon of light in what for some of us feels like a dark time. You can find links to everything we talked about today in the show notes by going to runningforreal.com/episode 425. You can also find links to our partners in there. Thank you to Runna, to Tracksmith, and to AG1. Remember, there are special deals for each of those brands when you go to that link at runningforreal.com/episode 425. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next week.